So today I want to talk about Terry Mancour's Spellmonger series, which is my current favorite fantasy series of all time. I think I like it a little bit more than Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere, but I still love the Cosmere. Spellmonger, you might say, is not quite safe for Mormons. One of the only cautions I'll give people about Spellmonger is that Minolin the Spellmonger, the main character, starts out as a bit of a womanizer, but he does get over it. And it is a worthwhile read that does him justice, right? That does that type of person justice. It's got great characters of all genders. It's not like super hip on trans and non-binary, but there are trans species characters, so I think he's listening to the same tapes, sort of. Like, my three favorite characters from the books are Gatina, the Kitten of Night, in whose honor I often swear darkness. Pentandra, the Sex Mage, and the Sorceress of Satha Wood, who's just an old jazz fan. I would say in terms of hard sci-fi fantasy world building that it's a little bit less mechanically satisfying than Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. That's where he really shines. But in terms of creating a world that appears to reflect some of the occult aspects of our world and our legends, it really goes over the top. Okay, now here's the pitch. There's a planet called Calidor, and on that planet, there are some humans. They're living an agrarian lifestyle. They have a little bit of magic. The Magi are kind of like an underclass. They're not allowed to hold property. There are elves, the Alka-Alan. There are dwarves, the Karshak-Alan, and other different tribes. There's actually 7 different kinds of dwarves. There's the Tal-Alan, who are halflings, and then there's the Gurvani, who are goblins. And there's all kinds of other characters. There's even a member of the great race of Yith from Lovecraft. Isn't having things in the public domain great? And so these people, they sort of know that there was this island called Purwin. There's this old language called Purwinese, which is English. It's full of jargon terms that they don't understand. And there's legends about how humans first came to Calidor from the stars. And almost everybody interprets that as some sort of a divine creator myth. But over the course of the story, the characters have to really come to terms with the fact that, okay, they're not from this planet. Not only are they not from the planet, they are not even the first colonists. The main character of the series, Minolin the Spellmonger, is interesting primarily because, like almost any sci-fi fantasy action hero has to be, he can kick butt. He is a war mage, but he has a graduate degree, essentially, in thaumaturgy, which is the study of magic in his universe. And so what he really is at the core of his being is he's a geek. He looks at every problem from magic to combat to the gods to his marriage as some sort of a problem that he can potentially understand the internal dynamics of and start unpacking. And so he's surrounded on all sides by his own secular authorities who really want to keep the Magi contained. He's surrounded by elves who want to hoard knowledge but who aren't actually very innovative. And like any good fantasy setting, there are also villains and dark lords and eldritch abominations that are constantly threatening to swallow them. And so he's like, I've just got to unlock all the tech. I've just got to get us back to where we were, plus our mastery of magic, which we didn't have at the time, plus hopefully some genuine human development that would make us not such crap. But one of the most interesting things about the series for me, especially as I've been connecting to my religion, has been the gods in the setting. Because the pagan religion that the characters follow in the series, the set of pagan religions that they follow, are very similar to classical paganism. Except in his books, those gods are definitely real. And like the gods of old, they're not so much like abstract, maybe slightly personified forces. They're sort of like very powerful entities that are human-like who have extreme special interests. They are generally helpful. They mostly have good intentions, but the ways that they choose to help are often chaotic and result in unforeseen circumstances. Minolin's patroness is a goddess of fire, innovation, and revenge. She also likes baked goods. There is a wonderful goddess of love named Ishi, who the characters are constantly swearing by, like they're swearing by her body parts. If you were going to make a Spellmonger drinking game, one of the triggers would be every time somebody says Ishi's tits, Ishi's pink perky nipples, Ishi's bigger tit. There are gods of law and harvest and war, Huan, Duin, and Lewin. I swear they are Huey, Dewey, and Louie. There's a sect of astronomers who worship Carl Sagan and have blessings like a billion blessings upon you. To which I think one of the replies is billions and billions. I remember when I first started transitioning and I first started thinking about topics seriously like religion and psi and magic and stuff like that, I started to look at all the fantasy books I had read and I was like, a lot of these aren't escapism. They're people who are taking some stuff that's maybe alive in their life or the lives of others, and they're turning up the gain so that you can see more interesting things happen. Like, okay, so there was a lost island that humans were originally from, and it sunk beneath the waves, and now we live in a technologically fallen state. What does that remind you of? Atlantis, of course. And so, as much as I always wanted to write a science fiction fantasy series when I was 12, that was what I wanted to do with my life, I think it's almost more interesting for me to look at the things I'm doing in my profession in technology as a type of magic, as just some ordered system of forces that we can put to our command. And religion as not something that we can necessarily figure out, but something that we can experience and explore. Like, in the current political environment, you're never going to be able to get a grant to do studies on parascience. That money just doesn't exist because the CIA wants it all to themselves. Just kidding, haha, not really. But you can find ways to use experimentation and careful organization of data to bolster your own practices. You know, it's like people talk about chaos magic like it's this big thing. No, 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 no. It's the least framework that you can possibly put around anything paranormal because it's just like, oh, I think I did something weird there. I don't know how that worked, but I think I did a thing. Okay, I'll try to do it again. I had a video a little while ago that I may have taken down where I was like, okay, so you don't believe in demons or gods? Then why don't you say the magic words and see what happens? Why don't you get really good at meditation and really want to find the answer to a question and get yourself in a really open frame of mind to where somebody might actually want to talk to you and then say the magic words. I guess I'll end with one of my favorite quotes, which is from Heraclitus, which is, "If you do not expect the unexpected, you will not find it, since it is trackless and unexplored." Thanks.